If you deal with the severe struggle of anxiety, you know the feeling I'm talking about, that throat tightening, sweaty hands and clammy skin, heart beating out of your chest, unable to breathe, and feeling like you're gonna die. Yeah, that's the type of severe anxiety I'm talking about. In this video, I am going to share with you the exact framework that I used to overcome my own crippling anxiety and PTSD, and it only took me 12 weeks. My name is Seth Capehart, and I'm an emergency medicine doctor. I spent years in military special operations and as a special agent, which left me with unimaginable PTSD and anxiety, and it took me 12 years to figure out what was wrong, and only 12 weeks to fix it. This is the exact 4-pillar formula that I use in my high-level coaching program, where I coach high performers to reach their peak potential and longevity, and if you stick around, you will learn it absolutely free. The reason I am giving it away completely free is because I believe that everyone should be able to live the life of their dreams without the constant weight of when is the next panic attack going to come. And unlike the majority of advice out there that tells you just to breathe or just to stay positive, this is coming from somebody who's actually lived through severe anxiety themselves. And the best part is you can implement this all on your own. No need for doctors, no need for medications, just 12 weeks of focused work. All right, before I tell you the framework, you first need to understand how anxiety came to be part of your own life so that you can know how to move forward. You see, we're not born with high anxiety levels. We're born into a reactive phase. We do not predict the future or think about what is coming. We simply respond to what is. If we're hungry, we cry because we need to be fed. And if we're in pain, we cry because we need comfort. It is only through life experiences that we learn to predict future events, and thereby causing anxiety about those events. Anxiety is a condition of rumination. We are consumed by the thoughts of what could possibly happen. For instance, in public speaking, we worry that we may look stupid and people may laugh at us. And with social anxiety, we worry about being around too many people and that something bad may happen, or that we may look bad in front of people. And in health-related anxiety, we have small, normal bodily sensations that progress into a catastrophic potential outcome in our minds. For me, it was a combination of factors. I believe they started in childhood and then progressed through my time in the military. You see, my parents divorced at a very young age, and I believe this is when everything started. I tended to be an introvert as a child, and honestly, that's still my true nature. And I tended to worry about things like when I would see my mom again. This mental anguish reflected itself in bodily symptoms such as upset stomach. And as I was growing up, I always tried to make my father proud, and this caused a lot of mental anxiety in that regard. Fast forward a few years, and I was joining the military with the intent of becoming special operations. During this time, more stress and more anxiety were imparted on me again with the constant fear of failure. After successfully passing selection and all of my training, I then completed multiple combat tours to Iraq, and I think it goes without saying that the constant demands and stress and things that you witness in war can cause absolutely terrible and lasting anxiety and PTSD. When I got out of the military, I began having symptoms that I couldn't explain. I would go to my doctor and explain the symptoms that I was having, and those things were like shortness of breath, chest pain, feeling like I was drowning when I was trying to sleep at night, and none of the doctors were able to tell me what was wrong. I had countless tests performed, and I was never given a diagnosis. They thought it might be my heart. They thought it might be my head. Nobody ever even considered that it may be a mental illness. It wasn't until about 8 years later, when I was in medical school, that I was sitting through a psychiatry lecture when I self-diagnosed with PTSD and anxiety. In fact, during the lecture, I felt like the professor was speaking literally directly to me when we were talking about the subject. So I ran straight to my doctor and told them that I had PTSD and anxiety, and they did what every good doctor is taught to do, and they put me on medications. Now, the medications actually did improve my symptoms quite substantially, and I felt like I had gotten my life back. However, those medications all came with a host of side effects, and what makes it worse is we don't actually know the extent of the long-term side effects of these medications, which can potentially include memory loss and emotional dysregulation. There were some animal studies that showed decrease in size of the amygdala, which is responsible for emotional control and memory recall and things like that. And I started really struggling with memory recall. Fast forward another 4 years, and I decided that I had had enough of the side effects, and I didn't know what the long-term implications were. And I figured that if I had accomplished all the amazing things I had in my life, that I could most certainly fix the problem if I dedicated enough time and effort to it. I researched everything I could possibly find about the causes and cures for anxiety. And I tried many of them throughout the years, and I only had very mild improvements. Some things would say, go exercise. So I would exercise, and I would see a little bit decrease, but I would still have panic attacks. Some things would say meditation is everything. I would try to meditate. I wasn't very good at it, but I would try, and it didn't decrease my anxiety. And then I decided that after all these years of studying that I was going to develop a framework and implement all of those things that I had learned over the years at the same time. 12 weeks later, I was a completely new person. I was off all my medications, and I felt absolutely incredible. So, if your story sounds anything like mine, or you have your own story that has left you with crippling, debilitating anxiety, you're in the right place. So let's get into the actual framework that you can start implementing today. I want you to start out by thinking of the food pyramid for a second. And you may be wondering, how the heck does that have anything to do with my anxiety? Well, actually, it doesn't directly. I just want you to think about the format of the food pyramid and how it's split up into four or five blocks. And if you look at the bottom of the food pyramid, you have a large group of carbohydrates. And then as you move up, you have meats. And then as you move up, you have fruits and vegetables. And then if you move up to the top, I think you have fats and sweets. What we're going to do is I want you to replace each one of these categories with a category that I'm going to tell you. And we're going to start at the bottom, which is the base of the pyramid. In that spot, you're going to place the word mind. That is the first section that we're going to talk about. I put mind at the bottom for a reason, very specific reason. Without the mind, we are absolutely nothing. In fact, if you think about it, the body is just animatronics to move your mind around so that you can experience this thing we call life. And there are many organs that you can live without, however, the brain is not one of those. In fact, when we say that someone has had brain death, it basically means that they're dead. When someone is in a coma, they're non-functional. When someone is having a panic attack, likewise, they're non-functional. And if we think about special operations selection for a second, it's not actually about the physical attributes of a person that makes them succeed or fail. The whole purpose of selection is to separate those who have a never quit mindset from those who do not. In fact, I have seen people with amazing athletic abilities who have quit in their first few days because they were not mentally prepared. So first we must lay the mental foundation in the mind before we move into any of the other categories. Now, when we think about the mind, we kind of need to split it up into a couple of subcategories to make it a little easier to understand and talk about. And the easiest way to separate it out would be cognition, emotion, behavior, and creativity. Each of these would be further divided into multiple subcategories, but I think for the sake of the length of this video and time, we'll have to discuss these at more of a high level, and then later we'll discuss the actionable strategies that you can take to help with each of these things. And when we look at cognition, we think about things like processing abilities and memory. How do you learn new things? How good is your short-term and long-term memory? How quickly can you recall things? And next, when we look at the emotional component, we think of things like emotional control, emotional stability, and the ability to process new emotions, the ability to experience new emotions. For behavior, we think about how do you respond to your environment? How do you respond to other people? How do you respond to internal stimuli and thoughts? And finally, when we talk about creativity, what is your ability to imagine, to dream, to create new things? So now let's discuss some of the actionable steps that you can begin implementing in your life today to improve your mind and to establish a foundation to remove anxiety from your life. One of the first things that I always recommend to people is often one of the hardest, and that is to wake up early. The simple act of waking up early, it allows you to get up before the chaos of the day starts. This can be very difficult depending on your job and the time that you need to be at work. But even when I have to be at work very early in the morning, I still get up a minimum of 2 hours before work, not only to properly prepare, but to go through my morning routine that sets my mindset for the day. When you get up in the morning, start your day by getting into the clothes that you need to move forward. That may mean getting into your work clothes, that may mean getting into exercise clothes, but once you're in those clothing, that sets the mindset of what you're going to accomplish and what tasks you're going to accomplish are going to be related to the clothing that you're wearing. If you're on a mission to get in better shape, for instance, which we all should be, then getting up and putting on your workout clothes and running shoes is one of the greatest contributors to actually completing your workout that day. And once you're awake, go get your coffee. I want you to go to your table, go to your couch, and I want you to close your eyes and think about 3 things that you're grateful for. This practice of gratitude should not be underestimated. I know it sounds kind of woo-woo, but it's very, very powerful. You are starting your day in a positive mindset where your brain is the most influential and at its peak hours. This should take you no more than 3 to 5 minutes. If you really want to change things even greater, then I suggest that you actually try visualizing the things that you're grateful for in as much detail as possible. I actually learned this practice from watching an event that Tony Robbins did where he took the crowd through this exercise. And once I started implementing it, it brought so much more positivity into my life every single day, so much more gratitude every single day. You can even relive specific events in your past that brought you great joy and happiness. This act of extreme visualization will actually cause your brain to relive those moments as if they're happening all over again. Therefore, be very careful about what you actually recall. Next, I want you to go through some breath work. There's a lot of breath work routines out there, but I particularly like the Wim Hof method. I do this in the morning. I do this before I go into the ER during the day. I think it helps reset my adrenaline. It helps reset my fight or flight response. But you're free to do whatever breathing exercise you want to do for the next 5 minutes. After your breathing exercise, pull out a journal. Yes, journaling. I used to hate the idea of journaling, and it has become one of my favorite things to do and the most productive events that I do all day. Journaling can be very difficult when you first start to try to write down your thoughts on paper. It's like, what do I write about? But after you get going for a few days, you'll realize how truly transformative and amazing it is. It's even better if you get a journal that already has some prompts, as it helps you to get in the mindset of what you should be writing down. After a while, you won't even need the prompts, but it's still really nice to have. Put in your journal things that you are grateful for, goals that you have for yourself for that day, goals for your 1 and 5 years, things that you're struggling with, and also things that you're proud of, things that you've succeeded at. It doesn't have to be lengthy every day. Maybe a half a page would be just fine. This should only take about 5 to 10 minutes. And I also like to use this time to do a broad schedule for my day, list a couple of to-do things that I want to complete, but try to keep this list relatively short. That will help with anxiety. What it does is it offloads those things onto an external source so that you don't have to be constantly thinking about them all the time. I would suggest maybe only 3 big items that need to be completed during the day. If the item's very large, then it may be only one thing that's on your list for the day. But make sure that whatever you put on that list is something that you want to accomplish to actually move the needle forward to achieve your goals. After you finish journaling, I want you to get up and go outside. Go for a walk, go for a run, go exercise. It doesn't have to be far, but 1+ miles of walking or running or jogging will do absolutely amazing things for your health and your mindset. All these things together so far shouldn't have taken you longer than about 40 minutes. Now, once you return from your run, it's time to get started on the largest task of your day. Your mind is the most fresh in the morning and primed, ready to dominate. And a bonus tip, try to watch the sunrise in the morning. This isn't one of those I like long walks on the beach type of things. When you watch the sunrise in the morning, it sets your hormone levels for the rest of the day. It allows you to get better sleep at night. And speaking of sleep, sleep is the single most important health hack that I can possibly recommend to you. If you can go to bed at the same time every night, get 6 to 8 hours of uninterrupted sleep, and wake up at the same time in the morning, then you are well on your way to optimal health and eliminating your anxiety. It is the single thing that I recommend to people when they ask me for health tips. If your sleep is not dialed in, you were setting yourself up for failure. There are so many other things that go into an optimal mindset that I would love to cover with you, so I'll quickly list a few of them, but each of these could literally be a separate video or a book chapter all on its own. And these are things like ensuring you're implementing creativity in your daily life, ensure that you continue to read, ensure that you continue to learn, memory and recall exercises, positive self-affirmations, planning, planned rest, forced hardships, etc., etc. And I will make a future video on many of these things So just make sure that you're subscribed so that you can be notified when I do release these. Or if you're even more eager to get started with all of these now, just contact me directly. There's a contact link down in the description and we can talk about working one-on-one together. So when we look at the next step in the pyramid, I want you to write down body. That's the next level up. And in this, we are talking about the physical aspects of optimal health and wellness. And you may be asking, how is the physical components related to my anxiety? Well, let me return your question with a question. What are you actually experiencing when you experience anxiety? We mentioned this earlier, but you experience increased heart rate, shortness of breath, feelings of doom, sweating, palpitations, skin crawling. These are all physical symptoms, and what we do with our physical body plays a huge role in the anxiety that we experience. In fact, symptoms that you are experiencing are due directly to the fight or flight response, which is a surge of adrenaline released by the adrenal glands. So we need to prime our bodies on how to handle this type of stressor. And after years of studying this, I have found that there are 3 primary components that make up the physical portion. 1 is nutrition, 2 is movement, and 3 is intentional stress. From a nutrition standpoint, the biggest thing I can recommend to you in this era of fad diets is to stick as closely as possible to nature. A whole foods, non-processed diet will make you feel absolutely incredible compared to the standard American diet. If you go through your house and get rid of all processed foods, anything with high fructose corn syrup, anything with seed oils, anything with ingredients that you can't understand, and you replace it all with fresh, natural, organic meats, vegetables, nuts, seeds, healthy fats, it will go a long way to not only improving your health, but reducing your overall anxiety because of how good your body will feel. Your mind will also be way more clear when it's not laden with all of this crap. Second, we're talking about movement. When people think of this, they tend to say exercise instead. But I intentionally say movement because I don't think that it's necessary that you go to the gym, which people tend to associate with exercise. It's more necessary that you're actually getting enough movement during the day so that you adequately wear out your body in time for sleep. At a minimum, I would recommend that you aim for 10,000 steps per day. Anything over 8,000 steps has been shown to have a 50% decrease in all-cause mortality. That is greater than any medication that you could possibly hope for. If you enjoy dancing, then dance. If you enjoy running, then run. If you enjoy swimming or walking or biking or hiking, then do those things. But it's absolutely essential that you start moving. And third, we talk about intentional stress. One of the most popular things right now that you'll see with intentional stress is cold plunging. Now, I actually do cold plunge. I have one because I feel like it has been one of the best things to help me with beating my anxiety. It's also one of the hardest things that you'll do during your day. So it kind of makes everything else feel easy in comparison. But there's a lot of things that you can do intentionally to stress your body, such as very hard workouts, long runs, extended breathing exercises, saunas, grappling, etc., etc. Doing some form of intentional stressful activity a few times a week will go a long way in helping you control the smaller panic and stress that you experience unintentionally. Your body gets better at controlling its fight or flight system through these activities. For instance, when you get into freezing cold water, you get a dump of adrenaline, and the fact that you're doing it intentionally and breaking through it and keeping yourself in that environment teaches your body how to control the fight or flight response when it occurs unintentionally. So if you've stuck with me until now, then I know that you're truly committed to getting rid of your anxiety and optimizing your health. When we move up to the next rung of the pyramid, I want you to write down the word connections. Another word for this may be relationships. I tend to prefer the word connections as when we think about relationships, we tend to think of only human relationships. Connections is a bit of a more broad term, and I'll explain why I chose to use it. When we think about connections, I want you to think about what are my connections to people, places, things, and myself. And so I'll pose a couple of questions for you to think about. What is your relationship like with yourself? What do you think about yourself? What do you think about other people thinking of you? What is your relationship to your family members, to your friends, to your children, to your coworkers? What is your relationship to your home, to your church, to your work, to your city, to your country, to nature? What is your relationship to your phone and your computer and your car and your house and your job? You really need to evaluate each of these areas of connection and intentionally work to improve each one of them. If you want to improve your relationship with yourself, start feeding yourself positive information. What goes in becomes what you are. Same thing with food. Whatever you eat becomes your actual physical cells, and whatever you are is what you put out. If you feed yourself positive affirmations, positive information from what you watch, read, and see, if you monitor your environment and make sure that you are around people who are positive, then you will certainly become a positive person and have a positive mindset. If you want to improve your relationships with others, then set intentional time that you will spend with them without looking at your phone, without checking your emails, without wishing that you were somewhere else. If you want to improve your relationship with your spouse, that morning when you're writing in your journal, schedule that you'll spend 30 minutes of uninterrupted time with your spouse when you get home from work, without distractions. Set the intention to be understanding and approachable and kind and loving during that time. Likewise, if you want to improve your relationships with your children and your friends and your family and your coworkers, you have to be intentional about the time that you spend with them. If you want to improve your relationship with places and with things, then you need to be really hard on self-evaluation of what your true relationship is with those things. If you're spending too much time on your phone, then you need to set a timer how much time you're allowed to spend on your phone each day. If you're spending too much time watching TV, maybe you only allow yourself to watch one show per day. If you hate your job, then it's either time to quit or find something about your job that sparks joy in you again. And one of the most important things is what your relationship is with nature. Are you spending enough time in nature? Are you getting out in the sun? Are you walking with your bare feet on the ground? Are you swimming in the oceans, hiking the mountains? Are you taking the time to watch nature move slowly? Are you learning the lessons from the seasons of nature? We are born as a species that was made to live in and with nature, and it's only in the last few hundred years that we've boxed ourselves up into these sterile environments in which we now live. It's time to reconnect with nature, which will show you how slowly the world really moves compared to the world that we have built for ourselves that is chaotic and structured and demanding and stressful and anxiety and panic inducing. And finally, the top rung of the pyramid is one we're going to give the least attention to because it's more about optimizing the total self as opposed to getting rid of anxiety. But if you want to write at the top of the pyramid the word skills, this is the word I have chosen to encompass everything from your financial life to your job skills to your personal skills. This is still an extremely important area, especially when you're trying to optimize all areas of your life, and it's part of my coaching process. But it's least important when we're trying to establish optimal health mentally, physically, and in your relationships, which are the key problems with anxiety. Now, I know this was a ton of information and your head is probably spinning. If you need to, I encourage you to get a notebook and rewatch this video and write down the things as you go through it. I mean, really pick up a pen and paper and draw out the pyramid with all of the rungs as well as the subcategories that can go into it. You can even use ChatGPT to find subcategories of each of the different steps in the pyramid and what actions you can take on them to improve each of those steps. If you would rather discuss it further with me, as I mentioned earlier, my information is in the description below. You can also feel free to ask me questions in the comments. I read every single one of them and will do my best to respond to you directly. So my call to action today is for you, not for me. Even if you don't hit like or subscribe or comment or share this video, I want you to spend the next 12 weeks focusing solely on you and your recovery from this crippling condition. Use what I've taught you here, as well as anything else that you have learned, and truly put in the work that is necessary to actually cure yourself from this. I know you can do it. I did it myself. I want you to succeed and live the best life that you never even imagined was possible for you. If you do know anyone else that is struggling from anxiety or PTSD, you can forward them this video, or you can talk to them about the things that you learned here. And if you're in your 20s or 30s and you want to live your best life ever, click this video and I'll tell you what I've learned in my 40 years that may help you achieve everything that you've ever wanted. Remember, anxiety isn't your enemy. It's your body's way of preparing you for challenge. Implementation is everything. Start with one strategy, master it, and then add another. That's how you do the hard shit that is necessary to overcome the unnecessary and become unbreakable. I'll see you in the next one.